Yet again, Capcom loves to re-release bundles, but this one is a pretty cool one. Today we're going to be looking at the Capcom Arcade Collection number 2, a $39.99 bundle that boasts nostalgic games that haven't really been released anywhere else. Some redundant titles some people will find pretty annoying to see in this package, but overall I think it plays great, it plays nice, and for those who really want to have games that they haven't played before. On top of that, you have online leaderboards, you have rewind features, and you have one of the coolest UIs I've ever seen. I think you'll love this whole collection. Whether it's Capcom, Elden Ring, or some of your favorite PC games, Nexus has you covered. Buy some of the latest and greatest PC games with up-to-date discount prices on Steam, all the while supporting the Kelphelp channel. Links are down below to my personal Nexus page, which are also affiliated, so you do support the channel. Thank you guys, and back to our video. I want to give a huge thank you to Capcom for giving me a Switch code, as well as the other filters and DLCs. That way you guys can see the full Capcom experience of this game. However, you don't need to buy every single game to have a good experience. If you want to skip to just the games and you don't care about the features, I have chapters down below that allow you to select the games, and we're going to go into 3 categories a little bit. Let's fire up this game, and man, the most striking thing about this is the UI. It is genuinely one of the best UIs I've ever seen when it comes into a compilation like this. You're presented with this beautiful arcade that you're actually going into, and it's nice because you see a ton of these games beautifully displayed and beautifully ornate. You have a total of about 32 games here on display. Right here, you can see all the games that are in this collection as well. If you're not really a big fan of the whole upright arcade, you could have a choice from upright arcades to candy cabs to even some tabletops. And what's very cool is that you could even change the side art as well. It's an aesthetic change, and you don't need to go through this, but it's very cool. And if you really feel like the choices of trying to change each thing is kind of overwhelming, you do have a randomizer that allows you to pick whatever layout that the game chooses. And it's pretty cool because it feels like it's pretty organic when you step into an arcade and seeing so many random top rights as well as candy cabs and, you know, that kind of variety. So you've got your game and you're ready to fire it up. The display options is going to be one of my other favorite features about this collection. To start it off, you have a display option of either 2D or 3D. With the 3D options, you can arrange from looking at the game through the perspective of the arcade. So it's like you're at the arcade and playing this game. But 99% of people will be playing the 2D mode because you want to see the whole game on your screen, and that's where you're really gonna love this. The 2D also has different backgrounds that you can choose from. I think the standard one is black as well as another one, but Capcom did send me some other ones, and you do have to buy these, which I'm not a fan of nickel and diming the consumer like this, but you do have different options to choose what you would like. But I think for most people, just choose the black background because it'll look the cleanest on your 16:9 screen. The display size is pretty nice because you have a choice of an arcade mode, which is mostly a 4:3 perspective of what the game looks. I'm assuming it's an integer scaling, and it looks pretty nice on that. You also have a normal 4:3 if you just want the game to kind of take the full 4:3 while also taking the full screen. And then you also have the full screen, which of course distorts the image and takes the full display of your TV. And I don't think you should choose this, but an option's cool. If you want to have that, you can go for that, but I don't think it'll look good at all. And in my personal opinion, out of most of these kind of collections, this is the best scanline collection I've ever seen. Capcom gave you a choice of either 5 or 6 kind of scanline options, some ranging from an aperture grill that really darkens the screen, but it really looks beautiful in motion, or a CRT consumer grade scanline, which has a bit of a honeycomb look to it, but also has nice color bleeding as well, and even some that simulate the bowing of the CRT. When you actually look at it, it kind of has like this nice little bow and a dip. It's these little things that really does make it feel like not only you're at the arcade, but it does a great job at replicating a lot of these CRTs. And aside from, of course, the RetroTink, which is what I'll be using to record my footage today, it's It's one of the best looking CRT filters I've ever seen on these kind of collections. You can even change the orientation, which is very cool for shmups like 1943, where you do want to see the full perspective of what the game looks like, or you can just actually go into 3D mode and change the orientation of that as well. The fact that Capcom gave so many options to play this is kind of a golden standard that I wish a lot of companies would kind of take a look at when they're either doing scanlines, when they're displaying the way the game should be, when it comes to some of these retro, kind of inspired titles or nostalgic titles. I really do hope that a lot of people look at this, take inspiration, and apply that to their games. Similar to other collections such as the Rare Replay, you also have a time features, which is really nice if you want to speed up the game and kind of make it more difficult, which is great for Street Fighter 2 if you really want to get as many quick punches as you can, or you can even slow it down, which is nice if you're really trying to learn the game and trying to learn how it works. Of course, you don't need to use these for those people who are like, why do you have this included? So you can turn them off, or you don't have to have them mapped at all. It's a great thing to have as well. Online leaderboards have also been put in this game, tracking how many points you have with people around the world. If that is something that you love and trying to get your highest score, it's a very nice feature to have, and it's very welcome as well. Okay, let's go into the games, and I'm gonna separate these into 3 categories. The first one is gonna be exclusive arcade games. The second is gonna be arcade ports. And finally, we're gonna go into the fighting games. We're gonna start with the exclusive arcade games. Right here on the screen, you can see a list of the games that are arcade exclusive, meaning the only way to play these is either having the arcade board or playing this collection. So obviously I can't compare this to any footage because I need the arcade boards and I don't have that. But for how the game plays, it plays very nicely. I've had no problems playing a lot of these and they look absolutely beautiful. While there isn't much to talk about in terms of comparison's sake, I really think a lot of people will be pleased to have these exclusive titles that have never been released out of their arcade counterparts. And I think a lot of people will be nice to know some of Capcom's deeper history, some of the arcade history, and being able to play these in a collection like this. Finally, it is a great way to play these since a lot of these boards are pretty expensive, or even getting these. So aside from, of course, emulation, I really think this is a great collection that allows you to play a very great variety of games. So we're going to go more into the arcade ports of the game. You can see them on the screen, the arcade ports that are here. And these are mostly going to be ones that have arcade versions but have been ported over to consoles, and they do have their minor discrepancies. For games like Super Puzzle Fighter that have a PlayStation and a Saturn port, usually the Saturn one is about the best port, but they're really fantastic, almost arcade perfect versions which look almost identical to their original counterparts. Aside from, let's say, color discrepancies, I really haven't noticed much of a difference, even in terms of how the pixels and how the characters are displayed. I haven't noticed any warping or anything. This is really great emulation that Capcom has done. So for the PlayStation and Saturn games that these ports were released for, you'll have an incredible experience that really harkens back to those kind of games. But we're gonna have a problem going into the 7th generation of games like the Xbox, the GameCube, as well as the PS2. More specifically, let's say with Mega Man The Power Battle was released on these collections. But emulation collections back in the day really prioritized smoothing filters and not really displaying the game correctly. So you're not gonna have the best experience on these previous collections that were released. But now that we see them, side by side and seeing them fully displayed perfectly on this collection, I really think it's a great way to not only revisit these, but play these on whatever's convenient. And not only does it look great, it's gonna play great. And I just haven't had a problem with it at all. If you turn on the arcade feature along with the scanlines, you're gonna have an almost perfect arcade port of what the game should look like. That is pretty amazing to say, but I really think that Capcom nailed it home here. And finally, we're gonna go into the fighting games. Right here, you can see all of the games that are displayed, and the discrepancy, I don't play fighting games, I'm not good at dissecting them, and I'm not even good at playing them. So please take that with what you will. But I know a lot of problems that people have with the fighting games of this collection is that they've been re-released on other platforms. So for example, some of the Darkstalker games have been first released on the Capcom Fighting Collection. So if you do own that, having this is kind of redundant because you're already getting games that you already have, but there might be exclusives such as the Street Fighter Alpha game. So it really depends on what you're trying to get, but that's going to be up to you. But other than that, these, at least to my eyes and to how it feels for me, the games do play great, and I've had no problem with, you know, doing some combos or whatever. And I'm not good at it, but I did have a nice time playing these and trying to give it out as best as I can with some of the alpha games that have been on the Saturn and the PlayStation. They look virtually identical in terms of how the game looks, and I've had no problems when it comes into that. So that's a really great thing to see that. I couldn't test Alpha 3 on my Dreamcast because my Dreamcast died for a bit, but I was able to try Hyper Street Fighter 2 on the Xbox and compare that with this version, and it does play rather nice as well. It has all the features in here, the characters are beautifully represented, and it removes that crappy smoothing filter that I wasn't a fan, especially when you see here with Ryu and how that displays in comparison to the Hyper Street Fighter, but I've had no problem with this. I don't know how the netcode is or how it plays online or even how to dissect that, so I'm gonna assume that there aren't too many problems, but then again, I don't know this, so please don't take my word when it comes to fighting games specifically on that. So my final thoughts for this collection. I think this collection is truly geared for arcade heads who want to play games that are exclusive to this collection and have not been re-released anywhere else. Having the convenience of some of these games too is also a great thing to have. And if you do have some of these games already, you can purchase them individually for $3.99. However, I can absolutely see a lot of people not liking this collection because a good portion of these games have already been released, so it's not too difficult to obtain them originally. If you're huge into fighting games, chances are you already have this collection, and it's pretty pointless to get these if you just play fighting games. But if you want to go into some of Capcom's deeper history, play some of their arcade exclusive titles that have only been released there and not anywhere else, that's a very cool thing. So it's gonna really depend on the player, but my thing is the games do play great. They look incredible, and the amount of options you can display the game however you like is amazing. I haven't really had a problem with it. I think it's a great collection in terms of that, but that's gonna be dependent on you. What do you guys think of the Capcom Arcade Stadium collection? Do you really think this is a great collection that culminates some of Capcom's classics, or, you know, this is a redundant piece of crap where Capcom just throws games that you've already purchased, now you have to purchase them again? But let me know in the comments below, because I really think this is a cool thing to talk about and see if it's worth having these redundant titles or maybe re-release new ones. So hopefully Capcom listens to that. Thank you guys so much for looking at the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really wanted to thank my Patreon folks for supporting the channel, as well as Tells Rob and Power Matt. And if you are interested in seeing my other videos, you can see them right here and see how they're displayed. I hope it was a good compilation of what this collection is and you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I'll see you very soon.